Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I want to take you through the topic soil. And this topic is found in Standard 7. And in soil, we are going to look at soil fertility. But as you are at home, you need to keep safe from this pandemic. Our fellow students and our parents at home, we are trying to sensitize this, that we must use the sanitizers whenever we are, to wash our hands, to keep safe from this dangerous disease everywhere you are. So, to the learners today, I want to take you through soil fertility. Yesterday, we learned about soil erosion, and today we are going to look at soil fertility, Standard 7 work. In soil fertility, you are required to define what soil fertility is. Soil fertility. Soil fertility is the ability of the soil to provide plants with the required nutrients It is the ability of the soil to provide the plants with the required nutrients, the nutrients that the plants need for them to produce. Or we can also define it as the ability of soil to produce high yields for a long duration of time. The ability of the soil to provide high yields for a long duration of time. If you are planting in your farm, we always expect to get a large harvest. So if the soil is giving you these high yields for a long duration of time, that means that the soil is fertile, because this soil is giving the plants the required nutrients in the right proportion. So if you are cultivating your land and you realize that the soil is not fertile, what are you going to add in the soil? So we are going to look at fertilizers. What are fertilizers? You need to know what a fertilizer is. A fertilizer are organic or inorganic substances which are added in the soil to improve its fertility. When you are cultivating your soil and you realize that the yields are very low, you can add fertilizer. And we are saying a fertilizer or fertilizers, a fertilizer is organic or inorganic substances which are added in the soil to improve its fertility. When I say organic or inorganic, that will take us to see types of fertilizers, because the one which is organic, we majorly call them manure, and the inorganic are the ones which are known as fertilizers. So we are going to look at Types of fertilizers. The first one is organic fertilizer. In bracket, we talk of manure. Number 2, we have got the inorganic, or we talk of artificial fertilizer. There is the one which is organic. These ones are known as manure. Then there is the one which is called inorganic or artificial fertilizer. This one is manufactured by human beings. We use chemicals to manufacture the inorganic fertilizers. The ones that we are using, the plant materials, are known as organic fertilizer. So we want to begin with these manures. Types of manures. Manures are majorly made using the plant materials. So we are going to look at the different types of these manures. The first one, we'll talk of compost manure. Number 2, we talk of farmyard manure. Number 3, we talk of green manure. Number 4, we look at organic mulches. So those ones are types of manure. The first one is compost manure. We go to farmyard manure. We go to green manure and the organic mulches. We are going to discuss them one by one so that we can know which is which between compost, farmyard, green manure, and organic manure. Let us begin with this one called compost manure. When you want to make a compost manure, there is methods of preparation. Methods of preparation. How do you prepare this compost manure? The first one is heap method. And number 2, here we talk of pit method. When you talk of heap, meaning the materials that are going to be used in preparation of this manure are going to be piled into a heap going upward. And in pit method, we are going to put them materials in the hole. A hole is known as a pit. So we are going to dig hole and we will arrange those materials in the pit. The heap method and the pit method. So when you want to prepare this, what are some of the materials that you require? Materials that you require in preparation. Material required for you to make a compost manure. Number 1, you need what is called topsoil will be required. We need the farmyard manure. Or kitchen refuse. We need the maize stalk. We need ash. these materials are required when you want to prepare a compost manure. So we are going to look at how these materials are going to be arranged, majorly in a heap method. If these things are arranged in a heap method, there is what all these things are required for. Let us look at why we need this material. Number one, why do we need topsoil? Topsoil is needed to introduce bacteria. For something to decompose, any material to decompose, there must be a bacteria which help in decomposition of these materials. So we need a topsoil to introduce bacteria. Why do we need farmyard manure? This one is going to help this bacteria to survive. It will provide nutrients for the bacteria. Provide nutrients for bacteria. The bacteria are living organisms. They cannot survive without food or the nutrients I'm talking about. So we need to add this farmyard manure so as to provide nutrients for the bacteria. Why do we need ash in the compost manure? To provide nutrients such as potassium. They will provide us with these nutrients, additional nutrients, because these our materials may be lacking potassium. So they are going to provide us with potassium and phosphorus. That is when we are now preparing the compost heap. This is what we need. And in the process of preparing the compost heap, there are some procedure that we need to follow and some things we need to do for us to successfully come out with a good compost manure. These areas are normally tested in examination. Number one, they will ask you why we add topsoil in the heap. And your answer should be, we are adding topsoil to introduce bacteria. Why do we need bacteria? To help in decomposition of the materials that are used. Why do we add farmyard manure? To provide nutrients for the bacteria. These bacteria need energy so that they can react on the food so that the materials can decompose. Why do we need ash? To provide nutrients such as potassium and phosphorus that may be missing in our heap. Again, you can be asked in examination, why are we told to turn the heap? Why is the heap supposed to be turned regularly? To allow for air circulation. That is number one. The air must circulate in the heap because remember there are bacteria in this heap. If the air does not circulate, the bacteria may die. Hence, there will be no decomposition of the materials. Another reason here being to facilitate uniform decomposition. We want the materials to decompose uniformly. Not that at the top there is full decomposition and at the bottom we find that the materials have not decomposed. We want a uniform decomposition. So we are always advised to turn the heap regularly to allow for air circulation and again to facilitate the uniform decomposition. Another procedure, we are told to moisten the hip. You moisten the hip. This one will help to fasten decomposition. It fastens decomposition of material. When the materials are moistened, they will decompose easily as compared when they are very dry. So we are trying to moisten the hip so that we can fasten decomposition. Another thing, we are advised not to wet the hip. We are supposed not to help wet the hip. There is difference between wetting and moistening. When you moisten something, meaning it is having little moisture. But when you wet it, that means it is fully drenched. It is having water. So not to wet the hip, to prevent leaching. We are advised not to wet the hip so that we can prevent leaching. And what is leaching? Somebody can ask you, what is leaching? Leaching is the process by which the nutrients are going to be washed away. You're washing them away, yet we need them. When you wet the hip, all the nutrients that we require, the macronutrients and the micronutrients that are required by the plants are going to be washed away. That means the end product will be less nutritious. It will not have the nutrients required by the plants. So it will be not helping our plants. So what you are doing is, we are supposed not to wet the hip so as to prevent leaching. When you wet it, leaching will occur, and at the end result, you will not have whatever you are preparing to be helpful. The washing away of the nutrients. When the nutrients are washed away, then we are waiting to gain nothing from this hip. From here, let us look at when somebody is preparing this thing in the pit. You will take all the materials that I had mentioned, you put them in the pit, whereby we have the 4-pit method, whereby there will be the first hip, pit, another, you keep on changing the materials in different pits. I want to look at this example number 2, the farmyard manure. How do we prepare this farmyard manure, and what is this farmyard manure made of? The farmyard manure. In abbreviation, they write it like that. Farmyard manure. It is made up of number 1, there is what we call the animal remains. We talk of the animal waste. Maybe the droppings from the animals, or the cow dung from the cows, the animal waste. Number 2, The animal beddings. Those who have seen the poultry house, you will find the sawdust being spread in the poultry house. These are the animal beddings that can also be used to make this farmyard manure. Number 3, kitchen waste or refuse. The leftovers from the kitchen, maybe the plant materials, the peeling of the fruits, the vegetables, parts. These ones can be used to make the farmyard manure. So when these things are made and put together and they are allowed to decompose, the end result we will get what is called the farmyard manure. You look at the animal waste, the waste from the cows, the waste from the goats, the waste from the poultry, all of them you take the all waste and you put together. Then we look at animal beddings, like the sawdust, the beddings of the animals, you can bring them together and you put them, and the kitchen refuse. The remains from your house, be it that you have peeled the fruits, you have cut the vegetables, those small remains, don't throw them away. We can reuse them in the making of the farmyard manure. So we need to know that there is all these waste material from the kitchen. They are very useful if we make good use of them. They can help us to make farmyard manure. If you talk about green manure, what you need to know about green manure, it is made by green plants. Majorly the legumes. The plants that we are going to use to make this green manure must have the following characteristics. Characteristics of plants used to make green manure. Which type of plant do we require when you want to prepare the green manure? The plant that you need, number 1, must have fast growth. They must grow very fast. Number 2, these plants must be highly vegetative. Leafy. They have many leaves, so we talk of highly vegetative. Number 3, they must contain high nitrogen content. Contains high nitrogen content. We say leguminous. They are leguminous. That's why we say majorly we use the legumes. They have a lot of nitrogen content. Lastly, they must be easy to decompose. They rot easily. When you put them in the soil, they will decompose very fast. So these are some of the characteristics of plants used to make green manure. Whenever you want to make a green manure, you need the following plants with the following characteristic. The plants which grow very fast, the plants which are highly vegetative, they have many leaves, they contain high nitrogen content, and they decompose easily. So after getting this type of plants, what are the procedure how do we make this green plant, the green manure? How are we going to prepare the procedure, the steps that you need to follow? What do we do? Procedure. Number one, cut the plants. Before flowering. The plants should be cut before flowering. Don't let the plants to flower first. Cut it when the plants are still young, when they have not reached flowering stage. Chop the plants. Into pieces. Number 3, we are going to plough the plant in the soil. We are going to plough or mix. We talk of plough, the chopped plants, into the soil and leave to decompose. You will mix. So this is the procedure that you are required to follow while trying to prepare the green manure. So we will end there for today. Tomorrow we shall continue with the remaining part of the soil fertility. So remain tuned, continue watching us from wherever you are, and you get more from us. May God bless you and protect you.